Roswell Incident, the classic study of UFO contact by Charles Berlitz and Bill Moore. We cannot predicate a mass delusion, especially in a world where many heads of state among the developed nations, as well as the highest officials of the United Nations, leading scientists, astronomers, and by now the majority of the Earth's population are convinced that we are regularly being visited by UFOs. They appear over large cities, seen by hundreds of thousands. They land near TV stations and power plants, and are suspected of having caused the Great Power Blackout of 1965. They buzz passenger planes and are reported to have destroyed military ones as well. They regularly haunt our advanced research and space shot centers and follow our capsules into the cosmos. So convinced are large numbers of people about the hovering presence of UFOs that an airfield in France is permanently reserved for their landing, its blue landing lights an invitation only to landing craft not of this Earth. And of course, these encounters do not include Russian sightings and alleged observations by both Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts of ruins, constructions, and pyramids on the moon, especially the dark side, which may or may not have any bearing on present UFO activity. It indicates, however, a lively curiosity in our own space activities on the part of entities unknown. Besides these meetings in the cosmos, there are sightings close and distant by thousands of chance observers here on Earth as they watch the skies by day or by night.
Only the bottom of the aircraft showed any damage whatsoever, but there was no
The
damage
Crescent
to
Moon
the
Club,
engine pods.
in association with ABT, presents Omnibus Unlimited, a roundtable discussion of provocative subjects which must be addressed today, forging a new way of thinking for the 21st century as we revise science, medicine, and history. Hello again, everyone. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. Tonight, from our ABT studios in Dover, our topic for discussion is
moon trash.
Joining us to address this subject is psychic healer and medical technician Tom Murray. Tom, thanks for being here tonight.
Good evening, Larry.
UFOlogist Dan Murray. Dan, thank you for being here tonight.
Glad I could beam down, Larry.
Communications expert Kevin Smith. Kevin, thank you for making it tonight.
A pleasure to be here, Larry.
And of course, seeker and producer of Omnibus Unlimited, Mr. John Horrigan. John, thank you for being here tonight, and thanks for that stirring tale you just gave us at the beginning of the show.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, kicker of an episode tonight.
Our visual backdrop for tonight's show is provided by ABT. Gentlemen, the stirring tale, as I said, John just read moments ago. Let's jump right into it. Tom Murray, psychic healer and medical technician. Tom, you wanted to talk about one of the things that John mentioned in his tale, the great brownout or the great blackout in New England. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, being the old guy in the group here, I guess everybody here can't remember 1965 like I can. But Dan remembers it a little bit. Dan and I from the town of Brockton. I remember going out and looking for candles, basically, because we had no candles in the house. Being brought up in a good Catholic family, there's always candles there, but I think we had burned them all down at some novena or something. But nobody anywhere could find candles. Everybody was looking around looking for candles, flashlights, flashlight batteries. This was the first major power failure system in the United States. It was a major brownout. It caused a brownout in New York and all of the New England states, and it might have affected such cities as Toronto and so forth. So energy from the other grids, or energy grids, electrical power units from the rest of the United States, had to drain off or shuttle some of their energy over to alternate generators and power transformers to help support energy in the New England area. Of course, the airplanes flying in the sky had a tremendous amount of difficulty because they couldn't use the landing systems as evening fell at the airports in the Boston area. You have the major downtown Boston airport, then you have other smaller airports supplying smaller planes also. So a lot of major aircraft were directed to fly to other areas of the country, specifically Washington, D.C. and so forth. So train systems were recruited to transport those people from Washington and outside the New England area back up to New England. Of course, they couldn't run on full power because of the major brownout. Now, this also makes me think of another major power failure that happened in the greater New York area with the telephone lines about, I believe it was a year and a half ago, in which a major trunk line of the telephone company, AT&T, failed, knocking out the communication systems in the tower at LaGuardia and I believe at the other airport, at Kennedy Airport, so that the pilots could not communicate with the people in the flight terminals, making flight landings very dangerous. So one thing it brings to my mind is that we have these very, very complex infrastructure systems of communications, whether it's telephones, lighting systems, electrical energy fields, and so forth, and that an outside energy force, which could be suspiciously the brownout some people suspect was a result of UFO investigations. Other people think it was just a mechanical power failure, but it never was really fully explained to the people in the States. That we still have many failable power systems. Some of the side effects of the brownout was the groups of people who decided to find alternative means of telecommunications and electrical communications, which indirectly and over the years led to the development of such companies as MCI. And of course that was justifiably reinforced using photoelectric energy through fiber optics. Thank you. Through fiber optics, as opposed to using wires or overhead microwave communications.
The Crescent Moon Club,
there is a serious situation there, but also I'd like to mention something that John mentioned about alien spacecraft too, more specifically, in which several months ago the joke was made that Santa Claus lives on the North Pole. I said no, Santa Claus lives, but he lives on the moon. And by the meaning of that, I think what Larry's going to get back into a little bit here is alien spacecraft, alien structures such as pyramids on the moon.
Yes, very interesting. And John, you wanted to mention something about that?
Yeah, just to close off what Tom was saying, we did a program, the Nevada UFO crash, I believe, about where a craft sets down their power plant, causes a power outage. UFOs are frequently sighted around power plants, whether they're conventional or nuclear, so they seem to be somehow sucking out of that force field or the electrical energy. And perhaps what we're intimating here is that brownout, again, we were very young at the time, was caused by some sort of UFO activity.
And yes, and that was a great little refresher that you gave us there, Tom, on what happened with the brownout. But let's get specific. I mean, what do you think caused the brownout?
That time I was pretty young. I really don't know what caused the brownout. I'm sorry, I can't help you there. But what I would like to say is what John just mentioned now is about drainage of electromagnetic energy. A UFO is a device that isn't solid in space. It often is dematerialized, and the occupants of it are also dematerialized, and they use hydrogen atoms, electromagnetic energy, oxygen atoms, and carbon atoms to materialize here on Earth, picking up random pieces of material that are here also on the Earth. Jesus Christ was a person who demonstrated this ability many times, in which he changed water into wine, and also the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes, if you're familiar with your biblical stories. But they materialize on the Earth plane using electromagnetic energy, which is a tremendously wide spectrum. Radio, TV, our own eyes, and so forth only are able to view a very limited band of the total electromagnetic field.
Very narrow, yes.
Yes, as our communications expert here will probably be glad to add, such spectrums as ultraviolet light and infrared light we don't see with the eye, but they're there and they're light. And also a vibration can take form in many different ways. Sound is a vibration. Sound, if you vibrate it correctly and put it on an oscilloscope, becomes a wave. That wave can be transferred to plastic and transferred to another system to give off a different sound or to give off a light beam. If it gives off a light beam, the light beam can be captured and transferred into another method, such as an energy field as an electrical impulse. So we're transforming and transmuting energy very often as Earthlings, as human beings. We just don't think of it that way. And the aliens are people who probably use 50% of their brains, and probably we use somewhere between 10 to 20%. And of course, we're using more and more as we're required to learn more and think more. And by using more of their brains and having more time because they have a longer lifespan, they're able to develop what we would consider extraordinary powers of healing, psychic communication, and the ability to materialize and dematerialize things.
Very interesting. Who wants to jump in here next, Kevin or Dan? Communications expert Kevin Smith. Kevin, what do you think about all this?
Well, to jump in where he was talking about the brownout, I believe the National Energy Commission related it back to a series of shunting resistors and relays which are used to get rid of an excess or overload of electricity, and the net effect was that one shunting resistor caused a domino effect of several shunting resistors in several different power transfer stations, which was later rectified hours after the original problem occurred. And again, to get back to your description of energy and the full spectrum, electromagnetic force can run from a strong electromagnetic force at no frequency, just that a magnet puts out, all the way up through radio waves, through microwaves, through light, infrared, visible, and ultraviolet. And then it goes into something that we know very little about called the cosmic rays, a very high frequency, hardly ever manipulated by man because of its frequency.
Larry, would you call magnetic energy cold energy, in which you don't have to use a lot of heat to generate that force, that it seems to be just there?
I think that's yes, Kevin.
Do you mean sort of an ambient force, or?
Well, we have, let's say, when we have a log fire burning here tonight, if I'm burning a log fire, that's obviously hot energy. We have to burn something, we have to put heat and effort into it to create the energy. Whereas with a magnet, you just bring it towards an object, or an object approaches to it, and the energy takes place, the movement takes place. So would you consider it cold energy in that sense?
Okay. Electromagnetic force as opposed to electricity, I would associate to a force similar to gravity, or a force similar to the force that binds electrons.
Such as the weak and strong forces in atomic structure.
Correct. Yeah. So what you're saying is that it's an ambient force. It's always there.
Yeah, if that could be the terminology, because I would say this is the type of force that we're trying to tap into now in the development of superconductors at ever higher temperatures, getting it towards the idea that although we've already developed superconductors that can literally float objects at what appears to defy gravity, the cooling systems required to do that at 100 degrees temperature are so expensive that it makes that available cheap energy source expensive due to the machinery that's required for it. Whereas, like the magnetic energy, if we could develop a system where these superconductors are working without having to be super chilled, you then would have a form of cool, cheap energy as opposed to a very high thermodynamic effect.
Correct, but it leads me to one question. What the heck does all this have to do with guys seeing stuff in space?
Well, I wanted to get to that. Tom Murray, ufologist, our resident ufologist. Tom, or Dan, what about all these the sightings on the moon of pyramids and ruins and construction? Talk a little bit about that. And the fact that they have been seen by both American and Russian astronauts.
Well, I like to
quote John Glenn. There it is, and my God, it's as big as they said it was. And then he was shut off and denied ever saying it again, but the ham radios picked them up. The other side of the moon, dark side of the moon, it is believed...
Good album, incidentally.
Yeah, excellent album. I'm a Pink Floyd fan from way back. It is believed that there are ruins along with the ruins on Mars, which plays into the theory that I talked about in other shows of there being another planet once that was occupied, our forebears.
And this is the planet that is now the asteroid belt?
Yeah, correct.
Would you call it Vulcan? Is that
I wouldn't call it Vulcan.
I'm just asking, but people have called it Vulcan, the 12th planet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was called. I believe that was where a lot of the ancient gods, the survivors, came from. The Earth has been through 4 to 7 cycles, depending on which histories of ancient history. And I'm not talking the crap you read about in school. I'm talking about the ancient history they read, of the ancients that we read. There's been 4 to 7 different suns, and what they mean by suns is destructions of the Earth, massive overturns, ice ages, fire, and everything else, in which man's been destroyed and reborn or survived. We're coming up on the next sun soon. That's why you have such massive sightings now. That's why you have...
what does that mean, we're coming up on the next sun?
We're due for another massive destruction, either an axis shift or a collision.
How soon is soon?
I want to just bring people up to date. If you grew up in school learning that the way you were taught in school and how this planetary system was formed, and if you believe that, and if you believe the local legends of your history class and of your religious orders, then you would now qualify for the human race known as Homo ignoramus, because you know absolutely nothing about the truth. And that's right out of Velikovsky. You know, you have totally ignored the real histories of everybody who could write long before the Egyptians thought about it. It's a fact. They're out there, and they hear how they travel, whether they materialize or dematerialize. I'm not intelligent enough to say, but I do know this. 1965 is the year that I started my encounters, and I remember the blackout. I have a very vivid memory going way back to a very young age. Why, I don't know, I just do. But why is it that I've read the same story that in upstate New York, this thing blew up, and it caused the domino effect of several others to blow. How come it never happened before? How come it's never happened again? You know, I have a hard time with this. You know, why did it knock out such a large area, the most populated area of the country? And it's always been a question in my mind whether there was outside involvement, and I do believe it was covered up. What happened, I don't know. I couldn't say. You know, I don't know, but I have never believed the NEC's report at all.
Maybe it was a ploy by the aliens to repopulate the East Coast.
Well, I can verify from my Air Force years that they are always seen, quite often seen, not always, over power areas and power lines, and they seem to have a fascination with them. I don't think, some people believe they suck power out of them. That could be, but, you know, another theory could be is that they're just studying them, seeing how...
Hey, women can do it to men. Why can't UFOs do it to electrical stuff?
I'd cut that one out, but...
there is a yin-yang effect there with the satellites.
If it'd be as if we went to a planet with inferior beings. We'd want to study how they get their power, their food supply, their social life, and how they're set up. So it would not be unusual for them to be seen in these areas because they are massive power structures. It has its own life. You know, no one knows what electricity is. That's the strange thing. We use electricity every day. It goes through our houses, it goes through our homes, it's in our cars, it's everywhere, but we don't know what it is. For all we know, electricity is its own life force. So, you know, and I'm not saying that electricity is the aliens within us. Don't get me wrong, you know. I'm not from the Outer Limits, although that was a good show when I was a kid.
Well, that's very interesting, Dan, because I've often said that I believe that fire is a life form. In
that
and of
is
itself.
studied. That is absolutely a study. That's part of one of the elements of the ancient world is fire. And they were unaware of electricity. That's like the other ancient missing element, you might say.
Very interesting. And if you've just joined this program, the name of this program is Omnibus Unlimited, radiovision for the 21st century, and infotainment in its purest essence. Tonight, our roundtable is discussing
moon trash.
You along?
Yeah, I just got a little bit off track, but I just want to say the other theory on the moon that I was trying to build up to is that the Pacific Ocean was formed when a catastrophe hit the Earth, earthquake, collision, or whatever, or the pull from another planet going by, or a sun system. It's believed the sun system does go through, and pull the big chunk of the Earth up. And that has been a theory for a long time, that a chunk of the Earth is what formed the moon. I'm not too keen on that theory, but that is a theory that has been around for a long, long time.
What about something as strong as a black hole, maybe a sister to our sun, or an asteroid actually being big enough to strike the Earth when it was young and molten and project a large portion of itself, the eighth continent, let's say, into space, forming the moon?
Well, I wouldn't be against that. You see, if you grew up believing that we revolve around the sun and that's the way everything is, and the planets formed from the sun's formation, then you're an idiot, because they would all revolve in the same manner and in the same direction, but they do not. And they do not all have all the same type orbits. And I have more news for you. The orbits have changed over the centuries. Our Earth time has changed. What we call a day today was different in ancient times. We've had to change the calendar over the centuries, going by even histories in the Bible, several times because the seasons have changed.
And how long is a day?
It depends on what time period you're talking about.
I mean,
today, currently it's 24 hours and I think 36 minutes and 5 seconds or something like that.
Correct. And that will have to end. John.
Just want to say we got off on the Great Brownout of 1965, and we talked about archaeological remnants on the moon once again. Well, I mean, once we get into these topics, it's hard to break away from. But that will have to end our discussion of astronautical UFO encounters. I'd like to thank our guests for being on tonight's show. Psychic healer and medical technician Tom Murray. Tom, thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you, Larry. It was a very interesting discussion.
Ufologist Dan Murray. Dan, thanks for being here this evening.
It was a pleasure.
Communications expert Kevin Smith. Kevin, thanks for being around and asking some poignant questions.
An enthralling discussion.
Just try to speak into the microphone in future shows. Oh, we just love to get on our own communications experts.
Leave the producing to me, Larry.
And, of course, seeker and producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan. John, thanks for having the show tonight.
Thanks, Larry. Excellent job, guys.
Omnibus Unlimited is seeking artists and videographers to display their works on our visual backdrop of various episodes of Omnibus Unlimited. If you're an artist or videographer and would like to have your work displayed on this show, send your name, address, phone number, and area of study to Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577, and perhaps your work will appear on Omnibus Unlimited. For the rest of our audience, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on Omnibus Unlimited, that address once again is Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577. All letters will be answered on upcoming episodes of Omnibus Unlimited. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. For all of us here at Omnibus Unlimited, thank you for your attention, good night, and good luck. Omnibus Unlimited is a presentation of ABT and the Crescent Moon Club. This program is presented by authority of ABT. Any broadcast, rebroadcast, or other use of the accounts and descriptions of this copyrighted telecast without the express written consent of ABT is strictly encouraged. Copyright 1993 by ABT.
Technology-wise, within the universe, we've become dangerous, and so it is their intentions, as they have tried in the past, through so-called religions, to tame us and bring us into the universal line. They intend to replace us, and not by coming down and shooting everybody with ray beams, but by generally pacifying us, by creating a race that's a bit more passive. That's what I believe is going on, and I find that scarier than anything else.
So, Dan, they're going to give us some sort of psychological lobotomy.
Not psychological. It'll be through slowly incorporating the new human into the field, a little bit alien into it, and in other words, they're going to
like a replicant.
Well, they're going to crossbreed us. That's what they're going to do. They've got the part of their experimentation. Because we're talking about an alien that is an expert. We put a person on an operating table. We use all types of mechanical and chemical devices to operate and to conduct our experiments or our medicine. They do not. They use different types of protoplasm. In other words, they use living cells to hold you down, living cells to repair, what we would call biotech today, only much, much more advanced. They operate in a totally different way than we would ever understand. Or that we're incapable of right now of understanding. We do have some worry on the fact that I believe the U.S. government is in cahoots with this. In a lot of ways, they've made friends with these aliens, and I think this is a big mistake because there's another alien force here, very predominant, and they were trying very hard to get through to us, to warn us of this race, and also to warn us that they intend, in time, to destroy us if we don't straighten our act. Well, let me put it this way: we are human beings, and by nature, we are violent, because that is the way you survive. In other words, what doesn't eat us, and they eat what we don't eat, on down the line. And so we're not in the same type of thinking as us. When they come down and they do their deal with us and experiment with us, we are an animal. We're no different than a scientist on a slab working on a dog or a chimpanzee because he has an experimental point he wants to prove, or try to find out. So, right, we have no soul. We're just an animal to be experimented on. They may have created us in the first place, and to us, we're just expendable. But they don't intend to wipe us out. They're not that type of person. But they do intend to upgrade the species, you might say.
Or to make it the way they want it to be. It's very interesting to think about that this Earth may very well be simply a petri dish, and an alien race is simply making us to be the human they want us to be, just as we would make a fatter cow or a whiter mouse. They are making a more cooperative human being. Tom, very quickly, we've only got about a minute left.
Yes, and as I mentioned, as Fowler states, who's an eminent ufologist and leader of several UFO organizations, and a famous astronomer and astrologer from MIT, that there's a good possibility that they have trouble with their reproductive systems and are concerned about us. And you find it interesting the connection between aliens and the weakening of the immune system, which is closely to our reproductive system.
Final words, Dan.
Yeah, quartets and the Montezuma, they were able to cut out your heart while you're still alive and you're still beating. Where did they learn how to do this? From these people.
And very scary. John, final words.
Yeah, it's scary to think that we could lose free will or wind up in a bun for an alien. And
that will have to end our discussion of E.T. Eats Out. I'd like to thank our guests for appearing on tonight's show, psychic healer and medical technician Tom Murray. Tom, thanks for talking about a really scary topic.
I find this an amazing topic the more I look into it.
Ufologist Dan, it's hard to be optimistic at this point.
Oh, I'm very optimistic. In fact, I'll be starting an underground movement to fight back.
Seeker and producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John. John, thank you very much for just probably one of our better shows.
Yeah, and just shows how helpless we really are
in this petri dish called Earth. And weathercaster Nobile. Damone, thanks for being here this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure is all mine.
Omnibus Unlimited is seeking artists and videographers to display their works on our visual backdrop of various episodes of Omnibus Unlimited. If you're an artist or videographer and would like to have your work displayed on the show, send your name, address, phone number, and area of study to Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577, and perhaps your work will appear on Omnibus Unlimited. For the rest of our audience, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on Omnibus Unlimited, that address once again is Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577. All letters will be answered on upcoming episodes of Omnibus Unlimited. I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. For all of us here at Omnibus Unlimited, thank you for your attention, good night, and good luck. Omnibus Unlimited is a presentation of ABT and the Crescent Moon Club. This program is the property of ABT. Any broadcast, rebroadcast, or other use of the accounts and descriptions of this program without the expressed written consent